gentlemen, Nick here, and welcome to this ranking of the War of the Worlds 2019 miniseries episodes. There are 3 episodes. I'm just going to go for a quick ranking. I pretty much explained my reasons for them in the reviews. So let's get started. Basically, it's just episode 1, episode 2, episode 3. Basically, that's just it. No separate episode titles. But yeah. Before we start, as I said at the end of my episode 3 review, this is the War of the Worlds 2019 is probably my least favourite on-screen adaptation of the War of the Worlds novel. I haven't really read the book but I've read this graphic novel, and I think that is a very good graphic novel version of it. It probably follows. I think it follows the book very closely. The series of graphic novels I've at school follow the books very closely, I think. And from the visual adaptations, I honestly think the 2 films, despite being set in America at the time of them being made, mid-50s and early 2000s, I honestly think they're better than this British series set in the early 1900s, closer to when the book was written / released. And yet this one, just despite being the closest adaptation in setting, it feels like the most different elsewhere, and with that, it also feels like the weakest incarnation for me visually. I mean, maybe some people think it's the best one, perhaps. There's also apparently going to be another film one, possibly by Fox or something, rumoured, coming up in the next few years. We'll see how that goes, but I still think we're waiting for the definitive version of War of the Worlds, the one that's very, probably the most similar to the book, without the least amount of changes, as well as also set in its original time, in its original location, or at least follow the story more. But yeah, anyway, so onto the episode ranking of the miniseries. Okay, number 3 is easily the weakest episode of the 3. Episode 1. Yeah, I didn't really like this one because it was just taking so much time building up, and it was trying to give the characters development and personality, because I think in the book they are a bit of much blank slates for the most part. And I do like that. One thing that this series did really well was giving the female main lead, Amy, the wife, the more centre of attention, or more of a starring role. But that being said, I think what they did with some of the characters' backstories, some of it just sucked. It sucked. They tried giving them personality and character development, but I think half of it fell flat on its face. I mean, I'm glad that they tried something, but what we got didn't work. As for the alien stuff, that was also not really handled very well either. The build-up wasn't too bad, just slow. But yeah, the stuff with the aliens until the very end was pretty weak, pretty much. So yeah, episode 1 I really didn't get into. Not really, apart from the ending. And also Ogilvy and Amy and George being very good characters. Despite some personal history between some of them. And Rupert Graves also got off his character to a good start, even though the character himself could have been... It does get better later on. Moving on to number 2. This one was a bit of a disappointing finale, but it wasn't a terrible episode. So, yeah. Episode 3. Yeah, main problems, it doesn't really... The whole future stuff that we see at the very end of episode 1, a few times jotted in, it's hinted at, we think it's Mars throughout the episode until the very end. Oh, it's actually in the future. In episodes 2 and 3, they're very back-to-back, go back and forth between both. I think episode 2 more on the invasion stuff itself, while episode 3 does seem to be very attentioned to the future stuff. And the ending of the invasion stuff does not tie in with that future stuff. It doesn't work, and I keep saying time and time again in these reviews. I say time and time again, but like I said it before, I said it again. I think the scenes in the future, they could all be cut, and this miniseries could only be 2 episodes, or if you did half-an-hour episodes, 5 maybe. So you could have cut them, and you would not have lost anything. Not really. Just like the book and the other films, you say things not really go back to normal. How can they be back to normal after this? But you don't get this whole apocalyptic future with them. Maybe there's some problems, but still Earth is still how it was before. But this whole apocalyptic future happens, and we don't really see how that actually comes about. It just happens, and then at the very end, there is sort of hope that it's going to go back to normal now with the bacteria. But it's just it comes out of nowhere. It's here for no reason. The only reason I can gather is to give Eleanor Tomlinson even more time to shine, but she was pretty much getting quite a lot of time to shine anyway for episodes 2 and 3, as well as episode 1. So, yeah, not to mention they killed off George, the main male character, which I don't feel comfortable with. He's the main character in the book. He's the main character, the basis of the main characters for the other adaptations. And whilst I'm happy to have Amy, the wife, the main female character, have a lot more attention and almost an equal, if not more, main character basis, I don't really feel comfortable with the main male character dying. I think they should both have survived. I got annoyed when Frederick died, but at least Frederick was a character who I'll be okay with dying, even though I'm annoyed that they killed off Rupert Graves, you bastards. But they could have kept George alive. I think it would have worked. But at least if you're going to kill him off, have him at least have the theory that having a disease, because I think he was unwell. I think that's what they were going with. If you're going to kill him off, at least say that somehow he contributed to the alien's death, not just allowing Amy to escape. He also contributed to at least that particular alien dying. But no, we don't find that out. It's still kind of oblivious what actually does kill the aliens. Is it the bacteria? Is it human engineering? It doesn't completely make sense. Again, cut some of that future stuff out, and we could have wrapped this story up pretty well. Yeah, episode 3, disappointing finale. As an episode, it's good, but it has a very disappointing finale, and I think they focus too much on the future stuff in this episode as well. Not enough in the present scenes. Oh, God. Okay, number one is probably the best episode by default of the miniseries, and even then, it still has a few hiccups, but I think, and it's still very different to the book, but I think as a episode in this in this new version of the story, at least it tries. I think this is the one that tries the most out of the 3. I think it's the one that's the closest to the feel of the book. I think it's the best in terms of character and execution, and I think it's just, as overall, it's just a good episode. Episode 2. Yeah, episode 2 is the strongest. I just think it does the characters best. I think it gets the situation a bit more. I think it's also the most frightening episode. There was a warning warning by the BBC that some frightening and intense scenes. I think there is a few of those. Well, I didn't get so frightened and intense, but because I'm 20. But it was a warning, nevertheless. And there are some pretty nasty scenes in it. I think more so than in episode 3, and that's where the aliens stab these little slurpy things into the bodies of an old woman, a little girl. Well, maybe they don't really see it into the little girl, but it does eat the little girl, and also into Frederick and George. So we see it into 4 people. So, yes, but this one, and there's also been people being killed by the Death Ray in episode 1, but I think episode 2 is a bit more intense, it's a bit more nasty, it's also a bit more the apocalyptic thing, not with the future stuff, in the present stuff, more of an apocalyptic feel. And whilst episode 3 does make you feel more isolated with the characters and there's no one else around, episode 2 also shows you the panic that everybody has when trying to escape, and I think the beach stuff is handled really well, and I think there's some really cool moments in the series where the humans do destroy the aliens, only to be, well, in some cases, counter-attacked. So some really good stuff throughout episode 2. Some bits I didn't really like, but on the whole, I think it was a pretty good episode. The main thing I didn't like was that idiot pointing this gun at George, forcing him to join. And, like, if he refused, would you shoot him? That's not a way to solve your problem, mate. You're just making up a bigger body count. But yeah, that's pretty much the only bit I didn't like. Also, stuff with the some stuff from episode 1 with the when we first see the ships. The ball, the ball thing around where it just randomly killed people. That's what we saw in episode 1. We got that kind of thing again instead of the cylinders, or a much better designed ship here in episode 2. However, they blow that up. Only for what's pretty cool is that a tripod then comes around and kills some of them. That was actually a pretty cool moment. And another cool moment was when one of the battleships shot down another tripod later on the beach scene. And also, I like this setup for episode 3 at the very end. I thought that was done really well. It's just a shame they get stuck at this place for most of episode 3. Well, for these scenes. I also think, like I said, the episode 2 doesn't focus on the feature stuff as much. It does enough to establish it, to show it's there, and it's going to be a main component of the series. I'm not really hot on these scenes, but episode 2 does it a bit better than episode 3. When establishing them, I think episode 3 would have been better if they'd done a bit more with the invasion side of the story, a bit more, and established the connection into the two. But they didn't. But episode 2's, I think, sort of work on a mystery basis. But anyway, so that's it from this ranking. I'll just recap the list. Number 3 was episode 1, number 2 was episode 3, and number 1 was episode 2. Yeah, no episode has got the same number ranking position as episode number in the series. Sorry. Anyway, so that's it from me. Thank you for watching this review, mini-series and ranking. That's about it. I might do some Dark Materials ones, actually. I was thinking of doing some of those for his Dark Materials. A much better series. Much more enjoyable. And like I said, I might do the film adaptations of the War of the Worlds as well for the Retro Channel. Dark Materials, I'd have to rewatch the series. At this point in time, we've watched episodes 1 to 7. Episode 8 is due to be broadcast. Might rewatch the series on iPlayer before doing some small reviews. Also thinking of doing something like this for these ones here for A Christmas Carol when that broadcasts. Probably do the same thing, record the series, watch it in January, and then I know it'll be January, it'll be a bit late, but yeah, we'll still get these around January time, maybe the Dark Materials ones as well. As for further TV reviews besides A Christmas Carol and possibly is Dark Materials, well, besides those two, the next one should be Doctor Who Series 12. Oh boy, do we need Doctor Who Series 12. Pretty much right now, basically. No, I can't wait. It's December the 16th. Can't wait for January the 1st. Well, can't wait for December the 25th, to be honest. But January the 1st can't come soon enough. We need Doctor Who Series 12 pretty soon. Okay, well, that's enough from me. Thank you for watching, and see you guys next time. Goodbye. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Nicholas Payne Retro YouTube channel. It feels like the weakest one, and at the same time set it at the same time. But in the meantime, granted for giving them try for the film writers forgive. I do get number 3 was episode 1, number 2 was episode 3, and number 1 was episode 3. No same numbered episode as. Anyway, so that's it from